We are truly delighted to welcome all of you to today's online session of the Visiting Professor Program 2025 with the theme of Qualitative Methods in Environmental and Public Health Research. Even though we meet virtually, we are honored to have your presence here with us today. First of all, let us give our warmest greeting to our distinguished guests. The Honorable Dean of Faculty of Public Health, Universitas Diponegoro, Associate Professor Dr. Budiono, MPH, Vice Dean, and all of the academic staff of Faculty of Public Health, Universitas Diponegoro. Dr. Surindar Kishen Dhesi, PhD from the University of Birmingham, United Kingdom. Our honorable moderator, Mrs. Septia Irawati, BSPH MPH, lecturer at the Department of Environmental Health, Faculty of Public Health, Universitas Diponegoro, and also all of our dear participants from this event. Welcome once again to the Visiting Professor Program 2025 with the theme of Qualitative Methods in Environmental and Public Health Research. Ladies and gentlemen, before we officially start today's event, let's take a moment to pause and pray together. Prayer begin. Prayer end. Before we go further, I would like to introduce myself. Good morning, everyone. My name is Talenta Mima. You may call me Mima. I am truly honored to serve as your Master of Ceremony for today's event, and I will guiding you through this event until the very end. To uplift the spirit of this event, we would like to invite everyone to respectfully join in singing our national anthem of Indonesia Raya. Thank you everyone for the participation in singing Indonesian National Anthem Indonesia Raya. Now we will move on to the next agenda is welcoming speech from the Dean of Faculty of Public Health. We are honored to invite Associate Professor Dr. Budiono, PSPH, MPH to deliver his remark. To Dr. Budiono, the screen and time is yours.
I think Pak Budi hasn't joined us yet. Or maybe skip to me first. Huh?
Bu Yusniar maybe can give speech first.
Langsung aku. Oke, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Praise and thanks all to Allah, our God, for giving us the good health and also opportunity for us so we can meet via Zoom meeting to this program, Visiting Professor activity with Dr. Surindar as our speaker today. And the second is we always send prayers and greetings to our role model, Nabi Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, who has shown us the path from darkness to light. May we always stay focused in his path. As we know, our environmental health issues are becoming increasingly important due to the declining quality of our environment, which is largely due to our activities, our human activities. Therefore, various studies needs to be conducted to mitigate and to prevent the problem caused by this decline in environmental quality. One such study uses qualitative methods, which we will discuss in this activity. Hopefully, our program will beneficial to all of us. Okay, that's all I think. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you so much, Dr. Yusniar, for the inspiring and also encouraging words for opening this event. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, before we move into the highlight of today's event, I would like to invite everyone to turn on their camera as we're about to take a picture together. So please kindly open your camera and show us your best smile. Okay, maybe I would like to wait for a little while as everyone is preparing their camera and also their best smile. Okay, and I would like to announce one again for the participant. Please kindly change the virtual background by the virtual background that has been provided by the committee in the chat box. All right, I can see that some of the participants already turned on their camera and also use the virtual background provided by the committee. So right now I will help to count from 1 to 3 and please show us your best smile. Okay, maybe first pose. Smile in 1, 2, 3. All right, maybe once again. 1, 2, 3. All right, I think that's all for our documentation session. Thank you so much, everyone, for turning on your camera. All right, everyone. Since the Dean of Faculty of Public Health, Associate Professor Dr. Budiono, BSPH, MPH, is already here with us. So next, we would like to hear the opening remarks from Associate Professor Dr. Budiono, BSPH, MPH. To Professor Dr. Budiono, the time and floor is yours.
Thank you, Mima. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi
Surindar Dhesi, PhD, from School of Geography, Arts and Environmental Science, University of Birmingham. Dr. Yusniar Hanani Irawati, Chair of the Department of Environmental Health, Faculty of Public Universitas Diponegoro, Moderator, Septia Irawati MPH, and our colleagues, lecturers from Department of Environmental Health, Faculty of Public Health, Universitas Diponegoro, all of the participants from undergraduate program and also master program, and maybe from the doctoral student. We also know qualitative methods in addition to quantitative methods, right? Qualitative methods for environmental health research focus on understanding experiences, perception, and maybe beliefs by using non-numerical data. So methods such as interview, for example, in-depth interview, and also focus group discussion and observation. Common qualitative design include ethnography, usually used by the health promotion, and also phenomenology, grounded theory and case studies, and also narrative research. I think these methods provide in-depth price data to explain complex socio-ecological phenomena, because from the environmental health, socio-ecological phenomena, and give voice to communities, and often in conjunction with quantitative data. Usually we use mixed methods approach. An example of qualitative methods for environmental health is the use of in-depth interviews and also focus group discussion of FGD to explore community perception, for example, pollution, such as air pollution exposure and its associated health effect. Qualitative methods such as in-depth interviews and FGD are used to gather in-depth contextual information and how people perceive environmental risk and their health. Researcher can conduct open-ended interviews with residents or respondent or subject of a community known for a specific environmental hazard, such as industrial pollution, agriculture pollution, water pollution, and so on, to understand their experiences and concerns and perceived health impact, such as respiratory issues, pesticide poisoning, or maybe stress. Other qualitative methods include community mapping, ethnographic studies, like I mentioned before, from previous, analysis of document or historical record. Historical record to uncover pattern of environmental exposure and also health disparities. And I think this topic is very useful, very important for us from environmental health and public health in general. So please actively discuss everything related to qualitative methods. What is it like? Why is it important? And how can it be done? And also what are the challenges? So Surindar Dhesi, PhD from School of Geography, Art and Environmental Science, University of Birmingham. She is an expert and has excellent knowledge and experience in the field of qualitative methods, and of course, at application in environmental and public health research. She briefly explained this in more detail. I hope you pay attention to and are active in discussing this because it will lead you to a different perspective and finally enjoy the lecture. Thank you very much. With your permission and Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, with the Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, this seminar I officially open. Thank you very much. Again, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
All right, thank you very much to Dr. Budiono for the inspiring and also for the opening speech for this event. Once again, before we continue to our main agenda and main session of this event, I would like to invite everyone to please turn on their camera again and please use the virtual background provided by the committee as we about to take a group picture photo together with our dean. All right, I think while we're waiting for everyone to open their camera, I would like to lead the photo session for this session. Okay, I will count from 1 to 3. Please show us your best smile in 1, 2, 3. Okay, maybe for the next pose, please put your right hand into your left chest. This is the Undip pose, noble and valuable. Okay, maybe once again, and please smile. 1, 2, 3. All right, thank you so much, everyone, and also for Dr. Budiono for having a photo together with us.
Yeah. Thank you, my name is Nir, and also Surindar Dhesi. I have to move another room for the next meeting from the summer course program for the next week. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi
warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you so much, Dr. Budiono. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are moving into the highlight of today's event, which is the sharing session with Dr. Surindar Kishen Dhesi, PhD, Fellow of the Chartered Institute of Environmental Health, Chartered Environmental Health Practitioner, Senior Fellow of the Higher Education Academy of the University of Birmingham, United Kingdom, that will be led by Mrs. Septia Irawati, Bachelor of Science in Public Health and Master in Public Health from the Department of Environmental Health, Faculty of Public Health, Universitas Diponegoro. So without any further ado, to Mrs. Septia Irawati, the screen is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Mima, and thank you for the opportunity that given to me. Good afternoon in Indonesia, everyone, and good morning in the UK for Dr. Surindar. And today, as mentioned before, we will have a session of the visiting professor, which presented by the Department of Environmental Health, Faculty of Public Health, Universitas Diponegoro. And before we start our discussion and also the presentation, maybe I will introduce first the speaker for today. Okay, so the committee maybe can share screen the CV of Dr. Surindar, please. Okay, while waiting, ladies and gentlemen, today we will talk about a very interesting topic here that has been mentioned also by Mr. Budiono as our dean. Okay, the CV, please. Okay. Today we will talk about the qualitative method in environmental and public health research. I think this is very interesting, and maybe some of us, for some of us, this is not a new topic, but I'm really sure that most of us think that this topic is very new, and this is unusual topic maybe, yeah, in the environmental health. So today we will try to enrich our knowledge and also change our perspective maybe about the research in the environmental health. Okay. I'm sorry for the committee. Maybe you can share. This is the tour, not the tour, but the CV, please. While waiting, maybe I can greet our honorable speaker here. Hello, Dr. Surindar.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very well,
Okay.
thank you. And how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for this
Okay.
invitation.
Yes, we're really great to see you. We're really glad to see you today. And actually, I've been waiting for so long to meet you, even though it is online, but it's like 6 months ago, yeah, when I first called you and asked you to come to our visiting professor. And now we meet, and I hope we can enjoy this discussion, and also we can get new knowledge from your presentations. Okay. Um, um, Wait a second. Okay. Okay. Maybe you can. Oh, wait. I'm sorry for this technical.
No,
Wait.
you're fine. It just took me half an hour to realize my thing was mirrored the wrong way round. So I'm sorry for the photo because my whole screen was back to front. It didn't look very professional, but there we are. Now I
No,
think
it's very great. That's great. A very good photo. Wait a second. Okay, maybe I will share it by myself. I'm sorry for this.
fine.
Okay. Now, please allow me to introduce Dr. Surindar first. I've got the CV here. Okay. Okay. Oh. So this is the CV of our speaker today. Okay, her name is okay. Her name is Dr. Surindar Dhesi. I don't know if my pronounce is
Perfect.
correct or
Perfect.
wrong. Surindar Dhesi from the University of Birmingham in the UK, and this is the activity of Dr. Surindar. So she is an associate professor and course leader of the IOSH accredited MSc Health, Safety and Environment Management at the University of Birmingham, UK. And also director of postgraduate courses for the College of Life and Environmental Science. And actually, I'm so interested with this one because Dr. Surindar has also focused in the interest in migrant and refugee health and the role of environmental health and other specialism in tackling health inequality. So not only a lecturer, I think you also an activist, right? Maybe I think like that. And also she is involved in research projects investigating living and working condition and their impacts of refugees, migrants, displaced people, and support workers in Europe, African cities, and the Middle East, and also in Indonesia. Okay, so here are some employment history. Here, oh, so many experiences, I think, in the research and also professional experience. And this is her education. So the last one is postgraduate certificate in academic practice in University and of Birmingham. And so there are also research grants, so many here, especially in the issue of environmental health and also in COVID-19. So productive, I think, so many publications here. Okay, without any longer, guys, maybe we can directly go to the materials that will be presented by Dr. Surindar. And I will remind you, if you have question or something you want to ask to Dr. Surindar, you can ask after the presentation session by directly raise your hand and ask her. Or maybe you can also write down your question in the chat room. So whatever you are more comfortable with, you can choose the way, and we can get more information and also knowledge about the topic here, qualitative method in environmental and public health research. Okay, without any longer, Dr. Sundar, please, the time is yours.
Oh, thank you so much for that lovely introduction. Okay, I'm going to try to share my slides. Okay, can you see this? All right, yeah?
Okay, clear.
Okay, right, here we go then. My tiny bit of bahasa, so I can say selamat pagi.
Maybe selamat siang. Selamat siang. It's already afternoon here.
Oh, it's afternoon. That is a good start. Okay, I'm going to stick with English, and I will try and speak at a pace which is clear and understandable, because I'm conscious this is a second language for most of the people on this meeting. So you know a little bit about me. I've been asked to speak about qualitative methods. So I'm a qualitative researcher. And the introduction from your dean was absolutely perfect. He was explaining that often we use these methods combined with other methods to really try and get a deep understanding of issues. So my plan today really is just to introduce you to a range of qualitative methods to give you an idea of how to practice them. But, you know, if you do want to use them yourself, obviously it feels different. So you need to read around the subject and practice with each other. And hopefully you'll find them, you know, very enjoyable methods as well. There's a lot of enjoyment in speaking to people, you know, in doing the interviews, in observing things. It's a very interactive sort of research. So here we go. Here we go. So I thought I'd start with just a quick overview of what the research process is, which I'm sure you know. How we go about the research. So you start off with normally some idea. It might be a big idea, it might be a small idea, but the plan is that you find what we call a research gap. So that's something that's missing from the current literature. So what you'll do is you'll read the current publications on a topic, and you'll try and find something, even if it's something very tiny, often it's something very tiny that hasn't been researched before. So you read all around the background, you generate your aims and objectives. And once you've generated those aims and objectives, you start thinking about the right methodology to answer the questions that you've raised. So this is very important. You might not set out to use a certain method, but you will look at your aims and objectives, which are aimed at addressing the research gap. And you will need to choose the right method for the job that you're intending to do. And so I'm going to talk a bit about what qualitative methods can bring in terms of answering the questions and addressing the research gaps. So once you've decided which methodologies to use, you will collect your data, which I'm going to speak about. You will analyze your data, which we'll also discuss. And then this is the most fun part, I think, in research, the presentation of the research and the sharing of the results. So I'm also going to share some examples from my own research of how you can use qualitative approaches to present and share the results of your research. So this is my plan. I'm conscious in the audience here, we have some people with a lot of research experience and some people with maybe no research experience. If you're undergraduate students, this might be new. So hopefully this is a little bit of background so you know what you'll be doing for your dissertation research a little bit. Okay. So I show this one to my students because the tricky part is often coming up with an idea in the first place. And we have this thing called PhD comics, which some of these are quite funny. So they're basically saying, you know, you're hoping for this brilliant idea to come. And you sit at your computer, hoping. And sitting at the computer, it doesn't mean that the idea will come. So the way to generate the idea is to do your reading, to speak with other people, to rest properly, to get out and about, you know, get the fresh air, free your mind a bit, and don't sit for hours looking at the blank screen because unless you're very special, the idea won't come that way. So this is a little bit upfront, don't stress. So with the research gap, you're trying to find the thing that someone else hasn't quite looked at before. It doesn't have to be world changing. It doesn't have to be, you know, Nobel Prize winning, but it should be something that is reasonably new. It might be looking at a problem that's been explored somewhere else in a different place, or it might be using a new method or something like that. But you're looking for that gap. Okay, so once we've identified the research gap, which the idea might come to you in all sorts of different ways, our next step is to think about, okay, how are we going to investigate the gap that we found? Is this pace okay? Can you understand me all right? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
you may continue.
If I'm going too fast or something, please tell me.
Okay.
Okay, so you've got quantitative approaches and you've got qualitative approaches. So quantitative, very simply, is kind of numeric, and qualitative is words and pictures and less of the numeric data. So you can, as your dean was saying, use both. So these are called mixed methods or mixed methodology. And this can be really effective and really great. And I would encourage you to consider using mixed methods in your research, especially if you're students, because it's a good opportunity to learn about using different methods and what they bring. So one example of mixed methods might be a questionnaire and some semi-structured interviews. Another example one of my students used was doing some air sampling and doing some focus groups. So that was a project looking at the working conditions of teachers in Nigeria. So Matthew was looking at air quality, and he was also doing focus groups with the teachers to understand how they felt about that air quality. So hopefully you can see you can use these different methods to look at the same problem, but from different angles. And you finish up with some data that can be very helpful and complementary. But the really important thing is here, the approach that you use must be related to what it is that you're investigating. So you found the research gap, you've decided what you want to look at, and then you develop your research approach based on the thing that you're trying to find out. That's the right way around to do it. Okay, so here's a little summary table. This is quantitative and this is qualitative. This is very simplistic, but I just found it helpful for my students to understand the difference. So when we're using quantitative methods, these are the things that you'll probably be quite familiar with already. These are really good for answering questions where there's numbers involved. So, you know, how many, how much, you know, something that we can put a figure on. These are excellent methods to choose. So often you'll use maybe descriptive statistics or other statistics. And these are good choices where we already know some information. If you're doing a survey, for example, quantitative survey, you'll be setting those survey questions. So you would already need to know some information to be able to set those questions. Okay, the questions might be on a Likert scale, they might be yes, no, but generally they're what we would call closed questions. And with these approaches, you analyze all your data together normally when you've collected it. So you might do a survey or you might do some sampling somewhere, you gather your data and then you analyze it together at the end. So that's quantitative approaches, okay? Qualitative approaches, which is my world, these are really useful for questions which are deep questions. So when we're interested in, you know, why and how and what people's experiences are, these questions are very difficult to answer with numbers. If we're interested in very deep knowledge, these methods can really bring something useful. So generally speaking, the most common approach would be interviews, which we then transcribe and we would analyze the text, or maybe images, or maybe documents. And it's very useful when not much is known about a topic. So if it's quite a new area, these methods are very useful. And we tend to use open-ended questions. So we're asking something where the answer isn't easily yes or no. We're asking questions where we're really encouraging people to talk about something and give us examples and to give us a depth of data. So with the data analysis, we tend to have a different approach to quantitative. We analyze the data while we're collecting it and also at the end. So for example, if you were doing a series of interviews and it's a subject that you might not know much about, or that, you know, no one knows very much about, after the first maybe 1 or 2 interviews, you would analyze those and you would look carefully and think, okay, is there something new here that I need to explore in my next interviews? So that's why we analyze the data as we're going along, really, rather than leaving it all to the end, because there is an opportunity to explore something new that's come up during the data collection. So these methods, I would say, are a little bit more flexible and creative, perhaps, than these methods, but both very much have their place, and they are quite complementary, depending on what the problem is that you're trying to solve. Okay, so here's some examples. We're going to talk about a few of these, but there's lots and lots and lots. So if you're interested in qualitative approaches, I would really encourage you to read around this topic, because all I can do today really is give you an overview. But as I said, the most common thing is interviews. And my favorite approach would be a semi-structured interview. So this is where you plan a set of questions, and we would call that an interview schedule. But there's also some flexibility in there to ask follow-up questions, to ask new questions, and, to explore things in more depth. If you have just a very structured interview, you don't have that flexibility. And if you have an unstructured interview, you wouldn't go in with any set questions. It would be very, very open and flexible. And that would be where you really don't know much about the subject at all before you start. So my favorite is semi-structured. That's what I encourage my students to use, because you have you have your questions as your initial framework, and you also then have some flexibility to ask some new questions and to follow things up. So that's interviews. Then we have what's called observations. So this might be field observations. You might be looking at people in a workplace. You might be observing behaviors. You might be observing, for my PhD, I observed some meetings and was looking at how decisions were made around public health funding, for example. So there's all sorts of observations that you can do. You can analyze documents. So one piece of work that we did was to look at health and wellbeing strategies in the UK and see which authorities were looking at active transport, for example. So that's an example of document analysis. Another approach is focus groups. So these can be very, very useful, but you have to be careful, because they're not good if you're discussing something very confidential or sensitive, because people will not feel comfortable discussing these things with other people. And there's a lot of trust required around confidentiality. And sometimes in a focus group, well, in any group, you always have some people who are very comfortable with speaking and some people who are not very comfortable with speaking. So you can finish up with a bit of a domination of certain people, and other people don't get a chance. So focus groups, they have their place, but you have to be a bit careful with them. They're not my favorite thing, but they can be useful. Actually, we did focus groups. I have an Indonesian example. So after the Palu tragedy, we did a project with the University of Palu, looking at how people who'd been displaced following the tsunami were managing in their camp environments, and how the systems were working to protect them. And we did some focus groups with community leaders, with environmental health leaders, with camp leaders, with experts, NGOs. And those focus groups were very useful because everybody was comfortable speaking. It was managed well, that everybody had their chance to say what they wanted to say. And those focus groups, I think, were very beneficial. So it just, with all of these, it depends. You have to choose the right approach for the situation that you're in. Photo elicitation is very interesting. We have used this a little bit, and I'm keen to use it more. So this is where you ask a participant to take a photograph or more photographs of things that are important around the topic, and then you carry out an interview using those photographs as a point for discussion. So these are really very exciting methods. I think these are good to use. And actually we did a project with this on our students' experience of their accommodation here in Birmingham, and we asked them to take photographs of things that were, you know, important to them or worrisome or whatever, and then we did some interviews around that, and we had some interesting findings from that. And as I say, lots and lots of other creative options. There's too many for me to speak about today, but these are the really common ones that it's good for you to know. Okay, so when we've identified the research gap, we then develop our aims, our overarching research aim, and then we will have research objectives, which help us meet those aims. And then we develop what we call research questions. So with qualitative methods, we have questions to answer rather than hypothesis to address. Okay, so these are questions from some of my research. So my main question, I had a big question around how local authorities were tackling health inequalities. So this was my big question. And then I had some sub-questions, so some smaller questions, which were helping me to answer the big question. Are local authorities taking an upstream approach? Probably you know about upstream and downstream if you're public health and environmental health students. Who is involved in the policy making? And are those policies implemented in practice? So you can see I had one big question to help answer my aims and objectives, and then I had some sub-questions. And I had to choose the right methods to help me answer those questions. So if you are writing your dissertation topic, your dissertation project, and you're using qualitative approaches, you must always make sure that you answer your research questions. So when it comes to the discussion part of your project, you should make sure that you return to your questions that you set out at the beginning and that you answer them. So you have your research is a clear story. Hopefully that makes some sense. Okay. So thinking about qualitative approaches, you now have an idea, hopefully, that, you know, it's not just one approach. You have a lot to choose from. And you can mix them up. Qualitative approaches, you can mix them up. Or you can also mix them with quantitative approaches. So these are examples that I've been involved with that hopefully will resonate with you. So often we see students will maybe do a survey and then do some interviews as well. So this is a very common approach. One example we had was a student who was looking at experiences of French students in higher education and the stress that they were feeling. So they did a big survey to get to breadth of data, so very broad data, and then they did some interviews to focus in on getting some very deep data. So these things can fit really nicely together. Another approach might be to do a systematic review. So systematic review is a desktop study where you look very closely at papers that have been published on a particular topic, and you could maybe do that with a survey. So we've had students do this. These can work well. You could do focus groups combined with some in-depth interviews and maybe some site surveys. So this can work very nicely. You're looking at the same problem, but from different angles with different groups, and this can work very nicely. And this is another project I've been involved with where we did some microbiological food sampling And then we observed the practices as well. So when we got the results back of the sampling saying there's bacteria here at infective doses, our observations were able to give us an indication of what might be causing those problems. So, for example, there was poor hygiene, people were not able to wash their hands properly, there was poor refrigeration, this sort of thing. So the observations were very helpful in understanding the micro results. Okay, so in a way, we kind of call this triangulation. So we have the problem, the research problem or the research gap or the question that we're trying to ask at the center of things. And then we might use 2 methods, we might use 3, and we're looking at this question from different angles. So the different type of data we get from these different methods, we can get a deeper picture by looking at them all together. So this is a really valuable approach, and I would definitely encourage you to think about using mixed methods and you know, this idea of triangulation where you look at a problem from more than one approach. Are you with me so far? I should check in. Yes?
Yes.
Good.
Sure.
Okay, that's good. I don't want to lose you.
We're listening and focus.
Okay, don't run away too much. Okay, so this is just another little reassuring slide from the PhD comics, and it's basically, I always say to my students, look, don't panic. This is, yes, what we're explaining. In a perfect world, everything goes very smooth, you know, neat, everything's lovely. And in the real world, everything is messy. Things don't go to plan. Maybe you'll be lucky. Maybe you'll be lucky. Everything will go to plan. But in my experience, there's usually some sort of glitch or detour. And the thing is, not to get upset about it, and to just take a step back, think, okay, how am I going to overcome this and positively move forward? And one thing I observed in my Indonesian students, they are very, very, very good at this. They are not knocked over when there's a problem. They will positively find a way ahead. Yeah. So I think you will be very strong at this. Don't panic if things don't go to plan. Sometimes people will say that they'll be interviewed and then they don't want to do it at the end, or they're not available, or people will say they will come to a focus group and you're expecting 10 people and you might finish up with 3, or all of these things happen. So this is life. We have to, you know, take a breath, think about a workaround and move on. But if this is your first time at research, we might be presenting to you that everything is, you know, very neat and smooth, step by step, everything's lovely, and real life, like everything, can be a bit messy. So hopefully that's a bit reassuring for you. Okay. So thinking about ethnography. So ethnography, ethnography covers a lot of qualitative approaches. So it's the kind of study, here's a quote, it's a study of social interactions, behaviors, and perceptions that occur within groups, teams, organizations, and communities. So really, I would say it's us trying to get a sense of real life, trying to get a sense of actually what's happening in the world. It's quite a hard thing to put our finger on. So we've covered some of this a little bit. So these are typical techniques. So observations over time. And we record these observations in what we called field notes. Okay, so obviously you have to note them one way or another. So one of my PhD students has been looking at the experiences of people living in Mumbai in India, who've been part of a slum clearance policy. So they've been moved from slum housing in the city to new housing, but further out of the center of the city. And she has done observations and gathered very good field notes that we've been able to analyze to understand the conditions that people are living in there. So we have interviews with participants. We've discussed this a little bit already. Another choice, some people ask people to keep diaries, maybe video diaries, maybe written diaries, but these can be very useful if you are interested in someone's experiences over time. So you might be asking your participant to record for you what is happening each week or 2 weeks or month or whatever in a particular situation that they're in. And as I mentioned, you know, we can do document analysis as well. So these are the kind of typical things that you might come across. So these approaches are really useful, as I said, when we want to try and feel, okay, what's happening in real life? What's happening in a natural rather than some kind of fake setting? They're useful for understanding the behavior of people to a point. And again, as I said before, where not much is known, they can be very, very useful. So often because it's good for very in-depth data, we get some surprises in our data because often we're looking at something that we don't know much about. And at MSc level, and to an extent at BSc level, this is really, really possible. Okay, so as long as your supervisors are happy, because they're the ones who are managing this process, it's very possible to use these methods. Certainly my students are doing MScs using these methods and mixed methods. So if you are keen, it's worth considering, but always in discussion with your supervisors to make sure that they're very happy with the approach that you're taking. That's always important to check. So when you're using these methods, we have people called key informants. And these are people that become really super helpful in a project. So they might help you, they might introduce you to participants, they might recruit participants for you, they might give you tip-offs, they might be happy to discuss some of your findings to help you understand what's going on. So I can give you an example here. One of my PhD students, she has been looking at rat behavior, rat controls, rat activities in villages in northern Thailand. So we are looking at ways in which we try to prevent the rats becoming a problem and entering houses rather than dealing with the rats when the problem exists. So this is her angle. But obviously it's a bit of a delicate topic, and she wanted to speak to people who were living in these villages. So what she did was approach the community leaders and explained all about the ethical controls, explained about the project. And when the community leaders were feeling confident, then they said, yes, okay, we will help you with this research. And they did some introductions to people living in the villages, and they were able to help the research take place. So we would call those village leaders who were super helpful, we would call them key informants. These people, they're not always predictable, but they can make a big, big difference to your research. Someone who is able to really facilitate things. So always keep an eye out for these particular people. They can make a massive difference for you. I'm just keeping an idea of the time. Right, we're okay. Okay, so when we're doing the research, we have to think about what we're doing and what our role is in the research. So you might be what we call a participant observer. So it might be that you are actually embedded in that research group. So for example, if I wanted to research work-related stress of lecturers at the University of Birmingham, this is my world. I'm a participant. So I would be a participant observer. I'm embedded in this. It's familiar to me. That's my world. Okay. However, if I was interested in work-related experience of chefs in school canteens, that's not my world. I've never been a chef in a school canteen. So I would be a non-participant observer. I would be on the outside. Can you see the difference? Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's plus and minus to all of these. There's no right and wrong, but we do have to do these approaches with our eyes open about the pros and cons. So if I'm a participant observer, if this is my world, people will relate to me in a different way to if I'm an outsider. And I have to be very careful that I'm not influencing them with my own experiences. So if I'm doing an interview, I shouldn't be using leading questions. I shouldn't be putting my own thoughts on them. I should be trying as much as I can to be objective. But these people will maybe trust me a little bit more. I would understand the language that they're using. I would understand the context, but there's a danger that I might make assumptions and see things that people are not telling me. Then with the non-participant observer, if I'm on the outside, maybe people will feel a bit uncomfortable. Maybe they will modify their behavior. Maybe I'm not seeing a very accurate picture of what is happening. So for example, using my kitchen example, maybe in normal circumstances, there would be a lot of shouting. It would be a bit of a rough environment. Maybe if I'm watching, they won't feel confident behaving like that. So I won't see the accurate picture. So if you're doing this approach, which to be honest is the norm, because we don't all research our own worlds all the time, we have to be aware of the impact that we can have as being an outsider. So it might be that we need to spend more time so people trust us, that they feel comfortable that we're there, and they get used to us and they know that we're not going to cause them a problem, for example. But we should always be aware of what our position is and how that might impact the research participants. Okay. And again, we have this idea of overt or covert. So basically being open or being secret. So I just wanted to flag this really, that obviously ethics has to come first. Always with research, we have nothing if the ethics is not right. And with qualitative methods, the ethics are really, 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 really important. So what we should always do is have this informed consent from the participants. So we would have, if you were doing an interview, you would have an information sheet about the research that you would give someone before they made the decision to take part. And then you would have like a consent form or consent questions that you would ask them before the interview took place. So I would always encourage you, and certainly if you're a student, to do the overt, the clear, informed approach. If you're doing covert approaches, there's big ethical questions. So we need to be very careful about breaches of trust, about ethical issues if we're doing something where people don't know that they're being researched. So my strong advice, do the overt approach, follow the good ethical practice, make sure that anybody who's taking part is giving their informed consent, that they know how you are protecting them, that they know that you're never going to share any identifying details, for example, all this kind of stuff. We should be very clear about the ethics. So I think we discussed this. I have had some colleagues in other universities do online ethnographies. So I had some colleagues, Swansea University, I think, were doing a lot of research around online diet forums, for example. So you can, ethnography can happen online communities, this sort of thing. And also they were connecting online communities and offline communities. So they were looking at like the football fan groups, offline, kind of in the real world, but also online. So you can mix all of this up. And as our online worlds become, more and more important, this is something that we can consider as part of our research. So I thought I'd give you some examples from student dissertations of where ethnography's been used very usefully. Okay, what have I got? I have one student who was looking at the experiences of displaced people's access to health services in Lebanon. And she was interested in the access to care on the mental health side. And as she was doing her ethnography, there were some surprises that came up. One was that as she was getting the bus to and from the research site, she was hearing lots of conversations on the buses that were kind of informing her research. So that was a difficult one because obviously she didn't have informed consent from the people sitting on the bus to take part in her research, but they were discussing things out loud that were useful for her project. So she just kind of soaked them up and used them to inform her work. But also she found, and this is one of the points where ethnography can bring some new data, she was interested in the access to the mental health services. But when she actually went to the camp settings and she was in the clinics, she noticed that the clinic consulting rooms, they were basically made of like a tent structure. You know the word tent? Ira, can you help me? What's the word tent? Like a temporary structure, not a solid structure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as a result, there was no privacy because everybody could hear what was going on in the consulting room next door.
Yeah.
So that's an example of something new. We weren't expecting that. And that only came to light from Allah's observations when she was on the site. So that's an example there. This was a colleague who was doing his PhD who used ethnography to investigate co-working spaces. So I don't know if you have this in Indonesia, maybe you do. There's big office spaces and you can basically hire or rent a desk in these spaces. They're co-working spaces. Yeah, you have them.
Yes.
And he was interested in the dynamics and how these worked. And actually, he rented a space in this office himself. So that's an example of participant observation. Yeah, he was a participant. He was using this workspace himself. Here we have, this is not the exact landfill site, but we had one student who was looking at communities living in and around waste dumping and landfill sites in around Makassar, Sulawesi. Yes.
Yes.
There's, lots of places have these areas where the rubbish gets put.
Yeah.
And he was investigating the lives of communities of people who were living here. So he went to the site, he interviewed the people, but he also made his own observations about what he was seeing from a public health point of view as well. And I will never forget, he was asking about anthrax. You know, anthrax.
Oh, yes, anthrax.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I remember one of the participants said, "Oh, we're so tough. Anthrax is scared of us." Anthrax runs away from us. So you will never have that data from a survey. You will never get that from a survey. Can you see the benefits of these approaches for the surprises, for the in-depth understanding?
Yes.
And here's another example. One of my students from Nigeria in the Delta region, where there's a lot of oil and gas exploration. She was interested in the impact of these oil leaks. You can see oil here, of the oil leaks on the local communities, because the oil was making the fishing and farming impossible for them. So they were getting displaced from their land because of the destruction caused by oil leaks there. And she did some really powerful interviews with the local communities about the kind of displacement and the work that they were having to do to survive, because they weren't able to do their traditional activities. So hopefully from these examples, they're all student examples. This was a PhD student, but these were MSc students. You can see the kind of depth of the data that you can get. And students always ask me, like, how many interviews do I have to do? This is always the question. How many? How many?
Yeah.
How many?
Yeah, right.
So obviously, if you're doing a survey or you're doing qualitative methods, you are looking for a certain number because you want to do your statistics and you want to have high confidence. Yeah. With these methods, we are not trying to generalize in the same way. We're trying to get a very deep knowledge about something. So there's a couple of different principles, really. One is something we call sampling to saturation. So this is where we interview until basically we're not finding anything new. People are saying things that we've already heard before. So that's called sampling to saturation. And that is a very good reason to stop. If you're not finding any new data, people are not revealing anything insightful, you already heard what's going on, then you can say, okay, enough, I'm stopping. Just from a practical point of view, with my MSc students, bearing in mind in the UK, we do MSc in 1 year, so it's very intense, the time is less. I would say 10 to 15 interviews, if you're going down that road, is manageable. If you do many more than that, it's not manageable. And we've had papers published from those small numbers of interviews. But the thing is, it has to be done very, very well. You know, they're really in depth. I have one student, actually, she's writing up now. She's a doctor, general practitioner from Saudi Arabia. And she's interviewed, I think, 10 other Saudi women doctors about work-related stress, but also pressures on them from outside at home and how they're managing things. So it wasn't possible to get a very large number of participants for this, partly because of the time, partly because of the access. You know, not many people are willing to speak about this sensitive stuff. There has to be a level of trust. So it is what it is, but I'm feeling quite confident that we can get this published somewhere. She's got some very, very powerful findings which are new and that we haven't seen published elsewhere. So I think manageability wise, 10 to 15, that's doable for an MSc. When I did my PhD, I did 50. And I also did document analysis, and I also did observations. So you can see the difference in scale, but you can only do what's possible in the time that you have. And part of studying at undergraduate and postgraduate is to learn new skills. You know, it doesn't have to be a piece of work that is is published necessarily, but learning the new skills is important as well. So, okay, action research. I'm just going to talk about this very, very quickly because it's a lovely approach and we don't do it enough. Or there's something in the chat. I think it's okay. So the normal research process is, this is a traditional approach. We do the research, we get the findings, we make some recommendations, and we hope someone pays attention. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe someone listens, maybe they don't listen, but
Yeah.
that's the normal research. Yeah. Action research is basically where we're trying to change something. So up front, we're trying to make the changes in collaboration with the researchers, with the research subjects, with the participants. We carry out the research, we evaluate what's happened, and we make further recommendations based on the findings. So it's like, it really is a circular process is what it's supposed to look like. It's very helpful. It's used a lot in business research and in education research, but it's not, in my view, used enough in public and environmental health research. So this is one proposal that we put together for an Indonesian student to try and get the PhD funding. So they didn't finish up doing this project in the end. They did a different project, but this got the funders' attention. So the idea was that, and you will know this world much, much better than me, but my understanding is there is a community of people who are doing batik work in homes. Yes?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
And obviously in a home environment, you have these various dyes, maybe not properly labeled, maybe not well controlled. And also you have food preparation, you have children playing, you have, you know, the whole home scenario happening. So the idea of this project was to identify the practices, identify the risks, do an intervention like a training package as part of the research, and then to evaluate that and see what difference has happened. So the intervention is part of the research. Does that make some sense? It's a different approach. Yeah, it's different to just documenting the problem, then making the recommendations and hoping someone picks up those recommendations. With action research, the intervention is part of the research. So I think it's way underused for our area. We could be using this really well, but we don't. I don't know why, but we don't. So it would be great if we could do a bit more of that. So I'm going to skip through this a little bit because I want to focus a bit more. We have just under half an hour. I want to talk to you about visual methods. So thinking about visual methods, I learned a lot about this from my colleague, Tom Davis, he is a geographer, but he's also a photographer. And we did a project looking at a refugee camp in France. How long ago? Maybe 10 years ago now. And he used photography as part of the research. And it was a big lesson for me in how useful it was for really thinking about what I was seeing, but also how useful it was for communicating the research results. So once you've done your research, you want to be ideally, you know, maybe attending a conference, maybe writing papers. If you're a lecturer, you will definitely be doing that stuff. And it's amazing the difference photographs make in being able to communicate your messages if you're doing this kind of research. So it was a big lesson for me, and I'm grateful for him. So there's two different ways of looking at images. You can say, okay, it's an objective view. It's a picture of the reality, and we analyze it in the same way as we would analyze our field notes or other things. Or we can be maybe a little bit more realistic and say the image, if the image is taken by the researcher or someone else, there are decisions that are made around the taking of that image. So what is the agenda of the person that's taking it? What is in the photo? Importantly, what is outside the photo, maybe that they choose not to take the photo of? You know, all of this stuff is a bit more complicated. So I'm going to do a small experiment with you. If you shut your eyes, I'm going to describe the conditions that we found in the camp in France, and then I will show you some photos. So if you close your eyes, I'm going to describe this to you now, okay? So the camp, so this is a camp where people who are displaced are living. It's in France. And it's built on sand dunes, like a sandy surface, on the edge of a city, near the coast, and near a chemical factory. Okay, there was not enough shelter for everybody. So some people were using tents, and other people had built some basic shelters to protect themselves. There was not enough food. The food that they had could not be safely stored. There was no refrigeration, and they couldn't protect the food from pests. People were cooking on open fires, so the air quality was not good. There was a lot of smoke in the air. People were using chemical containers for the storage of water. Toilets were overflowing and dirty. And because the waste disposal was not adequate, people were burning the waste. Okay, so hopefully maybe you have a mental picture of what I've described to you. Yeah, so you can open your eyes now. I'm going to show you some photos that Tom took from this research. Now, I did that. I took out the toilet one. Okay, I'm not showing you a bad toilet. This is too much. So you have to use your imagination for the toilet. I didn't want to shock you too much. Okay. But this is the camp. This is a photo of the camp. You can see the sandy surface. You can see the tent accommodation. You can see the shelters that people had built here as well with you know, wood and plastic. Okay, so this is part of the camp. I mean, this camp was very big. Can you see a pile of rubbish here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where's the toilet?
Toilet is hidden. Toilets are here.
Oh, okay.
You see them? Yeah, these
Yes.
Waterloo things. So these toilets need emptying a lot, as you know. They need cleaning and emptying because basically they just hold the waste. They don't flush properly or anything. They just hold the waste. So I save you from the inside of this toilet, but you can use your imagination.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So here we have a close-up. You know, someone has made a thing with a branch. Obviously, they tried to insulate it. France is not a warm country, so there were problems with condensation and so on. You know, the plastic and the structure there. Here we have cooking, example of cooking. Now, this is an interesting one. When I was there, I didn't notice this poor chap's foot because I was busy speaking to him and, you know, I didn't notice. I only noticed this foot when we got back and we looked at the photos and said, oh my goodness. And, you know, think of infection control in the camp. Some injuries happened here. Very, very difficult to keep this hygienic in these sorts of situations. So sometimes the photos bring you something new that you don't see at the time because you're a bit distracted. This is the food storage. Yeah, it's like a makeshift kind of kitchen. This is a water container. We think associated with the chemical factory next door, but it's difficult for us to say. This is being used to store drinking water. Obviously concerning, hazardous label there, can't be properly cleaned, etc., etc. Burning of waste, poor air quality. Yeah. So did the pictures change anything for you? Did they make something feel a bit different just to the words? Maybe.
Just moving.
Yeah. Yeah. So the pictures can be very powerful if you're trying to get across the sense of a situation. I'm not a good photographer. Bad photographer, but if you can take good photos, or if you can ask a participant to take some photos, that they can be very powerful and useful, actually. And I just wanted to highlight this. You noticed there were no photos of people's faces, no identifiable features. Ethics has to be absolutely right. So you don't lose anything by not taking the faces. We mustn't have anything identifiable. This is super important. Okay. This is another way of using visual methods in a way that we use. This is the camp. This is the camp. And we used GPS to log the different areas of the camp that we sampled. So that was quite useful using the GPS thing. And it meant that when we were talking about our methodology, we had like a visual way of showing it. Okay. Photo elicitation, I mentioned. This is where you have someone who takes the photo, and then you do like an interview sort of thing around it. And there's an example one of my friends, Caroline Barrett, did, where she was asking people who are living in shared accommodation to take photos of the things that were important to them. And then she was interviewing them about it. And this is very interesting paper. So one example from this, the idea is actually that you have the participant's voice more strongly than you would if you were just coming in from the outside. The participant voice is very strong if they are taking the photos and they are setting the agenda of what you're talking about. So there's one photo in this paper which was quite powerful. So it's a cat sitting on a bed. And then she does this interview, and the lady's saying, you know, I love my cat so much. It's very important that this is a nice home also for my cat. My cat is like my family. Da, 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 da. Now, for me, I'm allergic to cats. If I saw a cat in that room, I would be out of there. I would not be hanging around. Okay. And I would not, the lady wouldn't feel my love of cats to feel that she's happy to talk about all of that, you know, because I'm not fond of cats. So if I had come in from the outside, the data would be different to her taking the photo and then expressing how important the cat was. Can you see the difference? The voice of the participant is stronger, yeah? Okay. I'm conscious I'm talking a bit too slow, so I'm going to speed up because I want to talk about, this is another one actually. I should, okay. This look familiar. This is in Borneo, rural Borneo. So this photo was taken by my former student, Gustina, and she was looking at motorcycle riding. Yeah, you remember Gustina? She was one of your students. Yeah. This is Gustina's project. She's so funny. And she wanted to know what was happening with the children riding motorbikes to school. It was a very nice project, that. So you can see here, you know, she got the consent, and these were the children riding to and from school that she took the photos of. So, okay, I'm going to zoom a bit because this is, I wanted to also highlight the importance of visual methods for sharing findings. So from one of my projects where we were looking at the well-being of volunteers, so the volunteers who were supporting displaced people, we developed this advice sheet for them in collaboration with a psychologist and a psychiatrist to help them to prepare for what they were doing mentally and to look after their mental health if they're volunteering. So the visual side can be very, very useful for communicating findings and outputs as well. And this also is another example. This was a piece of research we did on the perceptions and use of canals in Colombo in Sri Lanka. And we came up with this idea of the book and different ways of looking at the canals, and it was illustrated by someone who lives in Nepal, actually. I can send you this book if you want to use it. So it's quite a nice way. Visual methods can be a nice way of sharing findings too. Okay, this is a bit serious, the qualitative data analysis. I'm just conscious of the time. I need to finish by 1:30. Is that right? Yeah. I have a little bit. Okay. So we've spoken about, we do the interviews. We're very careful with the ethics, with the consent. We have our list of questions that we want to discuss. But then the question, okay, what do we do with this data? So I'm just going to focus on interviews for now, because that's the most common approach. So when we've done the interview, we need to transcribe it. You can use software for this, but don't totally trust the software. Check it very carefully yourself, because the software will put in words you didn't say and meanings you didn't mean. So you finish up with what we call a transcription, which is the conversation written out one way or another. I find it very helpful to put some timings in to help navigate it. You must make sure that you put the interview and the respondent answers so that they're clearly different, because you're not interested in your own words, you're interested only in the respondent. So it should be clear that it's different. And making sure that you anonymize, so taking out any identifiable information that might be place names. It might be even descriptions if the name isn't there. If the description is enough to identify a place or a person, it should be taken out. So these are different sorts of analysis. I'm going to talk about thematic analysis. This is the most common, and this is very useful, and this is what most people do. So I'm just going to focus on this very quickly. So you have what we call coding. So basically, we look at our transcripts and we develop little codes, and we label the transcript with the different codes. So there will be some codes that you're expecting. These are the deductive codes. They come from the reading. You're expecting to find these. And then there'll be inductive codes, and these are the new surprises. So you'll finish up with what we call a coding directory. This is from a piece of research that I did around the health inequalities and English local authorities. So I had these deductive codes. These were the codes I was expecting from my reading. And then I had the inductive codes, which was basically the new stuff. And all of that helped me to answer the question I was setting out to answer. Okay, so when you're developing your code, you have what's called a coding directory. So you have your code, and then you have a little description, and the description will help you to keep on track. Now, learn from me. I did it a bit wrong to start with, and that's one of the reasons I'm sharing this. I had too many small codes, and it caused a bit of confusion for me, because I finished up with about 50 something codes, and it was not clever. It was unwieldy. So if I was doing it now, I would have one big code of health inequalities. I would have one big code, medical model and social model. I would have one big code, environmental health. I wouldn't divide it so small, because it became difficult to manage. So learn from me. Have fewer, bigger codes. This was my version 3. So you finish up, adding as you go through. And then what you do is you code all your transcripts. So for example, with my 50 interviews that I did for my PhD, I had a code around health inequalities. So I used some software to label all my interviews. Anybody that was saying anything about health inequalities, I labeled with that code. And then I pressed a button on the software and said, tell me everything I have labeled with that code. Okay. And that gave me, in a Word document, everything all across my interviews that was anything anybody had said about health inequalities that I had labeled. And then I was able to see, okay, what's the story around health inequalities across all of these interviews? What are people saying? And from my little codes, I then built bigger themes. We call them themes. So you have all these small codes. You then look and see, okay, what's the story around health inequalities? What's going on here? And then I can write that up as a theme. I can see the different opinions. I can see the different approaches. Maybe people are agreeing, not agreeing, different approaches and so on. But that software enables me to pick out everything I've labeled with those codes. All the software is a way of organizing data. It doesn't do anything at a basic level. It doesn't do anything more than that. It's not like SPSS that will do the whole magic for you. With this, there's thinking required. It's not an easy option. You have to think very careful. And I would say, personally, I can't do it all day. It's intensive kind of thinking work. So you're better off doing a couple of hours when you're fresh over a period of time. Otherwise, you miss what people are saying. So presenting the data, these are things that, so when you're presenting qualitative data, you would normally have like a little summary at the top explaining who the interviewees are. So this is just a summary I made up for my students this is from my PhD actually. So normally you give the interviewee either a fake name or a number, and you have a summary of the role, maybe a bit of background, something or other, depending on what it is you're looking at. Then you must describe what you found in your own words. This is very, very important. In your own words, you say what you found. And then you might use a quotation as some kind of evidence and to help to get the message across. But it should, if I was to take out this quote, this should still read okay. All right. What you don't present is a big, enormous, great list of quotes. That's not the way that it's done. You describe what you find, and then you put some quotes in to kind of make it alive. Yeah. Okay. So just wrapping up a little bit now. Couple of final tips, really. I would always recommend, whatever research you're doing actually, but particularly with the qualitative research, that you keep a research diary. And this is really good practice. It helps you to think over new ideas, to reflect a bit on your learning, to reflect on yourself, to, something you might write down on one day, you might return to maybe 2, 3, 4 weeks later, and you look at it with fresh eyes and you'll be able to answer a question that you've raised for yourself. So I would encourage you, especially if this is your first piece of research, if it's a new process to you, I would really, really recommend keeping the diary. I always recommend to my PhD students that they do this, and they find it's very beneficial for feeling their own progress, feeling that they are learning and developing, because otherwise you don't have those kind of reflections and markers on the way. So I would always recommend doing this. It can be really useful. And the other thing is, here's my lovely Mitoriana, you remember that? Also from Undip. This was the last time I was in Indonesia. So with these methods, it's very, very important that you think about how your role and your position has impacted the research. And one of the reasons I put this here, apart from the fact it's just lovely to see her, is that imagine I was doing some research in Indonesia. What's an example? Okay, the batik ladies. Imagine we were researching the batik ladies. And do you think that the project Mito would deliver would be the same as the project I would deliver?
No, I don't think so. It will be different, I think.
Even if we have the same intentions. So Mito will understand the language, the culture. She will ask maybe slightly different follow-up questions, at least to me. She will understand the context, the wider context. I'm an outsider. As much as I love Indonesia, I will always be an outsider. I wish it was my home, but it's not. And I'm never going to look like a local. Yeah, Mito looks like a local, yes?
Yeah.
She'll be
She's
trusted.
local.
Yeah, she's a local. She'll be trusted more than me.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
whenever we use these methods, we have to be very aware of who we are and what our position is and how that impacts the research. There's not right or wrong. My project can be just as good as Mito's project. She might make assumptions, you know, blah, blah, blah. An outsider's eyes can be fresh. It's not right or wrong, but we should acknowledge that we are different people, and that with these methods, there's a piece of us as a person always in them. In the questions we ask, in the follow-up questions, in how we are perceived, in how we analyze the data, even what we're looking for. There's a piece of us, and it's not avoidable. So when we write this kind of research up, we should always put something in that is a bit of a reflection of where we have come from in this, because it does have an impact, even if we like to think that we are like objective machines. We are not. And neither are our participants. So yeah. Okay. So I think that's it. Yes. Did I finish just about on time? Yes, I was worried because I had too much to cover. So I will stop sharing. But I mean, that was 100 miles an hour. That was a good chunk of my research methods module, delivered in just over an hour. So students, do not worry if that was too much. Don't worry. My only intention was to raise awareness, really, of these methods, and to give you some ideas of how they might be useful in your own research. So don't worry about remembering this stuff. It's a lot, and it's in a different language. And I squeezed, this is about 6 weeks plus worth of teaching I have squeezed into an hour. Okay.
Yes, that's amazing.
So do not feel that you need to recall or remember all of this. You don't. But I hope you might consider using these methods at some point, if either for as a student, or, you know, if you're evaluating work when you're a practitioner. That's my hope. So thank you very, very much for the invitation. It's been really fun seeing you all and speaking to you. And I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Surindar, for your presentation. And I'm amazed of how you present it so clear. And also there are some question inside our hat. Yeah. So maybe before we discuss, is there any question or maybe something you want to ask from the audience? Okay. What
Go on.
while we're waiting, maybe the audience have what is that question for you? Actually, in my opinion, um, like listening to your presentation makes me think that it is amazing how you like appreciate even a little thing, a little findings in the research. Maybe for most of the time, we are not often use this kind of method because we're afraid if people say that our result of the research is not scientific enough because it is not contains of data, numbers, and others. So after listening to your presentation, maybe I'm more, what is that, encouraged to use it to enrich our research in the future, like that. Maybe I want to ask a question first. Could you please share what is or when is the first time you think that um, learning about this qualitative method is important for us, for you, for us, of being a lecturer or maybe student in environmental health? Because I think most of us are comfortable with the quantitative method only. And how do you have any a specific time or moment that you realize that it is as important as the quantitative method too? Do you have this story maybe?
Um, well, it's funny. I think even now it's not as well recognized, even now. So I did my PhD at the University of Manchester Medical School. So doctors, as you all know, are mad on numbers. They like a good number.
Yes.
Yeah. And I
So
was
do I.
part of a small qualitative group within the medical school. And this group was bringing really important data about patient experience that you can't get really in a number in the same way. And watching the doctors kind of appreciate the benefits of that was quite powerful for me. And to be very frank with you, I'm not super comfortable with statistics. I can force myself to do it, but it's not my natural home. That's a reality. Okay, that's a reality. And different people have different strengths, and different people respond to different data differently. So I remember back when I was a practitioner, I went on a course about communication and how to influence policymakers. And they made a point that was really useful to me, which I carried with me. They said some people will respond to charts and figures and numbers, but for some people that won't impact them. They will respond to case study stories, to photos, to, and if you want to get a message across very strongly, you need to acknowledge that different people respond to data in different ways. So in your audience, you might have people who will be able to look at a figure or a set of statistics and understand immediately, very quickly. Yes, I can see what this is. A lot of my colleagues here are like this. They're air pollution modelers. They're very numeric. I'm not built that way. If I'm looking at a chart or a figure that's full of numbers, I have to concentrate to understand what's happening. But if I read an interview response, I can straight away feel it and understand the subtext and the messages there, which some of my colleagues who are more attuned to numbers, they don't see and feel it in the same way. So actually, my first lesson was when I was a practitioner, this communication course, understanding that if I'm trying to influence, if I'm trying to change a policymaker's view, I have to communicate in lots and lots of different ways, because they will respond differently depending on how they're wired, and that helped me to accept that, yes, I can do the statistics, but it's not my comfortable home. This other stuff is my comfortable home. And speaking personally, I can send out a survey and I can get the survey responses, but I don't feel a connection and joy in the survey responses in the same way that I do when I'm doing an interview with someone. When I'm doing an interview with someone, I can ask the follow-up questions. I can look around me. I can see what's happening here. There's a joy to it and a depth, and you can really feel yourself what's going on in a way that if you're just dealing with survey responses in a spreadsheet is not the same. So it just depends, but I think there's a value to this. It's not necessarily, I'm not saying it's better than quantitative methods. I'm saying as we should accept the whole package as useful, each with their own place.
Yeah.
So each of the method has its own advantages, right?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, yeah, exactly right. And it depends on the question that you want to answer. If your question, if your research gap and your question is how many, then these methods are no use. They're never going to
Yeah.
answer at how many. You can't do
Okay.
that. If it's why, then the number is no use to you. So it goes back to choosing the right method for the problem that you've identified.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for your answer. Maybe from Bu Yusniar, do you have any question, Bu Yusniar?
Actually, I want to share some of our master and doctoral student use mixed methods to their research, but I think none of them use solely on qualitative methods. they they use qualitative as some what is to enrich the research, not
Yeah.
only based on qualitative data.
Yeah, yeah. I to be truthful, I think that's a very good approach.
Mhm.
And I think it's a very good approach from a career point of view, if nothing else.
Yeah.
Because when you're looking for a job in academia, you
Mhm.
want to be able to do all of the things.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's so I think, you know, learning to do a range of stuff is very good from a research point of view, but also from a career point of view if you're a student. It's good. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, and I want to ask about how many is enough, because maybe for undergraduate student they should finish their study in strict time. So yeah, that's if especially in action research, right? They need to more step to do their research. So maybe in our doctorate student we use this action research type.
Yeah, I think, I mean, to do an action research project in a very short time, I think is something like impossible, to be honest. I wish we did it more at PhD level and as researchers, because I think it can be very useful. And I think we are not making the most of the opportunities. But I think, you know, if there's a BSc student or an MSc student, they don't have much time. And sometimes, you know, they do the mixed methods approach, maybe a survey and some interviews or something like this combined. So then, I mean, some of mine have even, if there's a big survey, maybe they just do 5 interviews or something to add a bit of context, because my personal view is it's better to do something small and do it very well than something big and it's a bit of a mess and you can't analyze the data properly because there's not enough time. And the coding and the theme generating is very, very time consuming. It's really, really time consuming. And it's very mentally intensive, you know? So you have to be prepared for that.
Yeah.
It's not an easy option. This is not an easy option. Not at all. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And maybe I will remind again to the participants, the audience here, if you have any question, you can both write it down to the chat room, or maybe you can raise your hand so you can directly ask Dr. Surindar like that. And Dr. Surindar, according to your experience, so what is the most difficult part while conducting research using the qualitative method?
Mm. On a practical point of view, getting the participants.
Getting the
On a practical
participants.
point of view, yeah. Especially if you're looking at something a bit delicate, you know, so like the mental health with doctors. It took that
Yeah.
student a long time to get the right participants, you know, and we had to accept a smaller number, but it was worth it to get that data which other people haven't been able to get, and we have to accept it for what it is. So I would say practical point of view, getting the participants to take part, and then from I think it's the coding, to be honest, the time taken and the energy taken to really get meaningful results from the coding. That can be, you know, you have to put the effort in. You have to put the effort, but it's not unenjoyable.
Yeah. I thought the most difficult part is analyze the data and also code the data like that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yes, I can imagine how it will be so difficult like that. And Dr. Surindar, maybe can when we conduct the qualitative method, especially while doing the in-depth interview, maybe we can get like so many informations. Maybe sometimes it's too much informations
Yes.
like that. And how can we separate the important and unimportant information, and how to prevent too much unimportant information while doing the in-depth interview? Maybe you have any tips or tricks?
You're so clever. You are so clever. I wish you would come and study here. This is a really common problem because you're doing the interview. It's very interesting. The interviewee is telling you the whole story, la 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 la.
Yes, of course.
And you're, oh, this is so good. You know, I say to my students, print off your aims, objectives, your research question, print them off and have them in front of your face when you're analyzing the data. Because if it's not part of your research, it's not part of your research. You got to keep, especially for MSc and BSc project, you don't have the time to go off here. You've got to keep the focus on what it is you set out to do. And even if you've got a whole bunch of lovely data on ancillary topics, you can return to that afterwards when the dissertation is finished. But it's not part of the project. So I think the best thing is try and keep the heavy focus on the actual, you know, the research questions. And in time, you will get better at steering the interviews so that they don't run away too much.
Yeah.
This comes with practice. It comes with practice. Yeah,
Yes.
it's such a good question.
Yeah, because I think it is so hard, yeah, because I used to work in the NGO that I communicate with a lot of communities, and when we want to find information, sometimes we what is that, the conversation is uncontrolled like that. Okay, and also I'm sorry, I want to remind again, teman-teman juga boleh bertanya dalam bahasa Indonesia. Nanti akan kita coba untuk translate seperti itu. Jadi jika ada pertanyaan ini karena I'm sorry I'm talking in bahasa. Karena ini sangat menarik ya, dan sangat bisa digunakan nih teman-teman nanti untuk penelitian. Oh, here there
There's
is a
one
question.
Yeah,
Yes,
can you?
di chat
Yeah,
room. Okay, I will read it for you. Excuse me, Dr. Surindar, would you please to share about which of the most appropriate approach to increase the openness and honesty of respondents in responding to questions given by researchers, especially when regarding the sensitive matters?
This is such a good
Yes.
question. It's a
Okay.
really good question. Yes. So I would say number one, ethics comes first. Ethics comes first all the way. So don't push someone to be interviewed if they don't want to be interviewed. You can feel if there's a bit of resistance, respect that resistance. If they don't want to do it, let it be. Don't try and talk people into a thing. No. Either they want to do it or they don't want to do it. And you are sensitive enough that you can detect this. If they don't want to do it, it's a waste of everybody's time because they won't give you good answers. It will be like, yes, no. Then I think making sure that the information sheet is very clear, that you are upfront with them about what the research is about, so that it's very clear. This is what the research is about. These are the protections that we have in place. Everything will be confidential. No personal information will be released. Making sure the informed consent is there, so you have a level of trust before you even ask any questions. The other things I would say is only ask a sensitive question if you need to. We're not in the business of being nosy, you know, and I often say to my students, you're asking these really nosy questions, like, you know, do you need to know how many children they've got, if they're married, what their salary is? You don't need to know how, it's nothing to do with it. It's just nosy. And if I'm asked these questions, I don't like it. I don't like it at all. And I will start to become a bit, you know, so ask the questions that need to be asked. Don't ask a nosy question if you don't genuinely need that data. And then that aside, it's about choosing the right environment for the interview. So it might be, I've interviewed people, for example, they didn't want to speak in their office. They didn't feel comfortable in their office. So we did the thing in a coffee shop. So it's you're choosing a place where they are comfortable. You have to be comfortable as well, but they have to be comfortable. And I think also, and this comes with practice, sensitivity and making someone feel comfortable in your presence, so that, you know, you're easy to be around. I think that you're a good listener. It's about listening, asking a question and then listening, and then showing that you've listened to what they're saying, not just question. Okay, I prepare my questions, and this happens, and not paying attention to what that person is saying. It's not easy to be a really good listener, but this is an important skill. So they're my tips, really. These are really good, fabulous questions. Really good question. Thank you for that. Yeah, great.
Thank you, Miss Wahyu Pujiastuti, for the very, very good questions. And now maybe there is more question from the audience.
Another one.
Okay.
There was another one. There's a Q&A tab, and there's a question here in Bahasa, but I can't.
Wait a second. Oh yes, there's Q&A.
Can you see?
Okay. Bu, bisakah diberikan contoh-contoh topik kualitatif? Oh, this is the question from the participant. Could you please give example the topics of that can be used qualitative method in environmental health? Because maybe most of time we know that this approach usually used for the health promotion, maybe because we identify, we also learn about the ethnography, but in environmental health, could you please give several examples maybe for the topic?
Yeah, I'll try. Let me think for a minute. Okay, so environmental health is very, very big, you know, so pick some subjects. I'll choose some student topics so that you have an idea. I had one student who was looking at the conditions of miners in Liberia. so Liberia in Africa. And she interviewed miners and the mining managers to understand the working conditions and the risk perceptions of people and the controls in place and the kind of barriers to having good controls in place. So I think it would be difficult to really answer those questions well without speaking directly to the miners and the mining managers, especially when you have a situation where maybe they can't read and write. Maybe the miners can't read and write. So survey is not going to get you anywhere really, or they, they're not in the conditions that they can necessarily do that. But understanding, the risk perception, understanding the different factors, they looked at the different levels of risk management. It was a good method for that project. So that's the kind of health and safety example. Back in the day, I had a colleague here who did a lot of work around air pollution perception. So the results were that people were feeling that, okay, my place is quite green, therefore the air is great. They're associating trees in a street with good air quality, this sort of thing. So it can be very useful for understanding people's positions on and perceptions of issues, environmental issues, and how we might overcome those. I'm trying to think, what else do we have? Food. Oh, we had a good one. A food one. Yeah, we had a good food one. So apparently, this is not my area of expertise, but in China, people don't use like preserved food as much. People are generally cooking fresh food. This is what this particular project was about. And she was finding, okay, the students are coming to the UK, they're eating bad food and they're putting on a lot of weight. Yeah. So they measured the people's weight gain. And they asked the students to keep a diary of the food that they were eating. Yeah. And then they discuss with them, okay, how is this food different to what you've been eating at home, and why? What's the reason eating this food? So that was very interesting. I mean, it came down to a lot of convenience stuff. Obviously, if you're a student, you're living in shared accommodation, you don't want to be cooking every day. Your mum isn't there to cook for you, blah, 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 blah. So that was a nice one. That's a food one. There've been ones on noise. This isn't research that we've done, but there has been research on perceptions of noise and how annoying different noise sources are. So there's stuff around people don't find trains very annoying, for example, but they will find a barking dog or music much more annoying, even if the noise level is around the same. So there's things that's noise. Does that help? Some examples?
Maybe oh wait. Okay. I think it's helpful and give inspiration for us to conduct the environmental health research using qualitative. And maybe can I please ask one question again? Since you said that the qualitative research, the result of the qualitative research can be generalized, right? So how if let's say if we ask or interview someone or several persons, how can we make sure that the information is really let's say for like regulation or recommendation for regulation or policy, how can we make sure that it is representative? Like this is what is that? The question. This is the information that we really need to give recommendation. Maybe the policymaker will say that this is only opinion from several people, so it doesn't represent the whole community like that. So how we can overcome this?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It's a really good question. And we don't normally make big claims about generalizing, because the purpose of these methods is to get a deep, deep understanding. So when you're putting your energy into the depth, you don't have the breadth in the same way. So we have to kind of accept that as a limitation. It's a limitation, just as a limitation of quantitative methods is that you have the breadth, but you don't have the depth. You know, and that's why mixed methods is powerful, because we can stitch them together to have the both. But you can, to a point, you know, when you're doing your sampling, we have something called purposive sampling. So, for example, for my PhD, I spoke to people who were working in urban areas, suburban areas, rural areas, affluent areas, poor areas. I deliberately targeted people from these different places that I wanted to get the views. So you can have a sampling strategy. It's not in any way random. We're not making claims to be random. There's not really a benefit to being random on that scale anyway. But you do this thing called purposive sampling, where you seek out the right people to meet your sampling criteria. Yeah. So you can say, you know, this is what we found here. It's likely to apply in these different similar areas. You know, normally some more research is kind of needed, but we tend not to make big claims about generalizing, because you don't, you have the depth, but you don't have the breadth. And, you know, with a survey result or something, you wouldn't have the depth. So plus and minus, really. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Good questions. Very good.
Thank you.
Yeah, very good.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Surindar, for your answer. Okay, and this is the reminder also for presensi. Bagi yang belum mengisi, silakan teman-teman bisa mengisi ya di chat room. Okay. Still there any question from the audience?
I think they are shy. They're shy.
I don't know if
It's a
they're
different
shy
language.
or what.
Yeah, it's very
Ya,
understandable.
ayo. Okay, I will encourage them with bahasa Indonesia. Ayo silakan bertanya teman-teman. Jarang-jarang ini ya ketemu ya sama dosen dari University of Birmingham. Yeah. Okay, is there any other question, ladies and gentlemen?
I can
Because
say, if they're shy, which is very, very understandable, it's a lot of information and it's a different language, totally understandable. If they have any questions afterwards, I'm very happy for you to contact me and I can answer them that way. It's very understandable that they're shy. I would be shy when I was a student. I would be shy also.
I'm still shy right now.
Are you? Are you?
There's a question.
Okay, there is a question in the chat room, yeah. How can qualitative data represent environmental health data as valid data? Because usually environmental data is certain and quantitative. Maybe this is like what I asked before. Maybe you can answer it, Dr. Surindar.
Yeah, I'm not, I think we need to be careful because we are not saying it is replacing anything. It's not replacing anything. It's just understanding a problem in a different way. So if you are measuring air quality, that's an important thing to be doing. And no amount of interviewing people about air quality is going to replace that data. It shouldn't, it can't, it's not. But interviewing people about air quality will help you to understand what the issues are, what an intervention might look like, how we might change people's perceptions and behaviors, and which purely measuring the air quality wouldn't give you any of that. Does it make sense? What I'm trying to say?
Maybe I
Can you
can add
translate?
some, some explanation.
Yeah.
Because we have, what is it? We call it, it depends on our research question, right? So if you want to measure and you want to make this certain measurement, so we use quantitative.
That's
But
right.
if we want to ask why, how, we use qualitative methods. So it's
Absolutely
different approach. Different question, research question.
Yeah, completely. Which taking a step back is about your research gap, what it is that you are trying to set out to do. If your whole purpose is to measure air quality in a certain place, then that has to be quantitative. But if then you want to say, okay, how do we try and change people's behavior around car use to impact this, then measuring the air quality won't answer that question. Speaking to people will help you answer that question, and understanding why they're using the car, what are the alternatives, like the motorbike piece of work. We can see the motorbikes are being used, but why? And they did the focus groups with the teachers. They discussed with the interviews with the family, surveys actually with the family members. That's how you get the depth to try and formulate a response sometimes. So I think don't look at it as in one thing is better or one thing is not better or one thing is replacing another thing. It's just another tool. It's another tool in our toolbox. That's it.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much,
Good
Dr.
questions.
Surindar.
So good.
Okay. Is there any questions, guys? That was question from Mr. Agung Waskito. Thank you, Mr. Agung Waskito. And is still there any question? If it's maybe we have how many times we spend? Oh, this is for PM, and maybe in the last session I will maybe you can give like closing statements, but before that please allow me to maybe give a conclusion in Bahasa Indonesia.
Okay, you do that.
Oke.
Go on.
Oke. Jadi teman-teman semua, ini dari hasil diskusi kita pada siang sampai sore hari ini. Jadi yang tadi sudah dijelaskan ya tentang metode kualitatif dalam penelitian kesehatan masyarakat, khususnya dalam kesehatan lingkungan. Jadi sebenarnya tidak ada, tadi yang terakhir disampaikan oleh Dr. Surindar adalah tidak bisa digantikan satu sama lain. Jadi masing-masing metode, baik itu kuantitatif maupun kualitatif, memiliki kelebihan dan kekurangannya masing-masing. Jadi punya advantages and also limitations itself, like that. Nah, teman-teman semua nanti tapi di sini kita belajar tentang kualitatif method, karena selama ini mungkin kita sudah sangat nyaman ya dengan kuantitatif pengukuran dan lain sebagainya, karena memang kalau di kesehatan lingkungan kan pasti harus ada ukuran-ukuran yang terstandar seperti itu. Tetapi metode kualitatif ini bisa menguatkan hasil penelitian kita, kemudian juga bisa mengcapture informasi-informasi yang itu tidak bisa didapatkan secara angka-angka ataupun kuantitatif, sehingga kita akan lebih kuat memberikan rekomendasi dari hasil penelitian kita yang bisa mengombinasikan dari hasil pengukuran-pengukuran kualitas lingkungan misalnya seperti itu dengan alasan kenapa mungkin dari masyarakatnya ada aspek-aspek lain yang tidak bisa ditangkap dalam bentuk angka-angka seperti itu. Dan yang tidak kalah penting juga adalah tadi yang sempat disinggung, sebenarnya pemilihan kuantitatif ataupun kualitatif ini pada akhirnya berdasarkan apa yang ingin kita jawab dalam penelitian kita. Ini juga tadi disampaikan di awal ya. Jadi sebelum kita menentukan apa metodologinya, kita menentukan terlebih dahulu pertanyaan penelitiannya apa yang ingin didapatkan dari penelitian ini sehingga kita bisa tepat menggunakan metodologinya. Seperti itu. Oke, Dr. Surindar, I think that's enough from me. I try to conclude it according to my notes like that. And now it's time for you to give a closing statement for this visiting professor. Please, the time is yours.
Well, just a big thank you really from me. It's an honor to be invited. I'm so glad to have this connection with Undip. Thank you to Mitoriana for the original introduction. And we have known each other for many years now, actually. It's a lovely connection. I hope it continues. I really hope it continues.
Yeah, me also.
Yeah, it's just lovely. It's lovely. And as I say, students, don't worry. I threw a lot of information in here. Hopefully it just piqued your interest in maybe practicing some of this stuff. But don't worry about remembering it. You're in really good hands with your academics and your lecturers. You're in very safe hands. So they will guide you. And just enjoy it. Enjoy it. Research is really rewarding. You'll be the first person finding this new thing, whatever it is. And, that's a real blessing. So enjoy the process. Trust your academics. And I hope we meet in person sometime.
Yeah. Amin.
I hope so. Amin.
Yeah.
Okay, and if you have any plan to conduct research in Indonesia and need someone who can speak Bahasa Indonesia fluently, you can call us. We will help you and very glad to be your team. Like that.
We should actually, we should look at something we can do together. We really should. Yes.
Okay.
Let's make sure we do. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Once again, thank you so much, Dr. Surindar Dhesi, and thank you for the knowledge that you shared, and also your precious time for us. And thank you for coming. And we are waiting for you come to Indonesia again.
Oh, yes. Well, thank you for being a brilliant moderator, and thank you for being a lovely audience. Really good questions.
Thank you so much.
Absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure. Yeah.
I hope I can go there to the UK for my PhD.
I hope so. Come. We are waiting for you.
It's been her dreams. It's been her dream since childhood.
That's my dream. Yeah, since I was in elementary school, I want to go to the UK. Okay, this is
because
I'm a big fan of Harry Potter.
Is that why?
Yeah.
Oh no, we don't want.
Okay, this is out of topic. Okay, maybe we can. This is enough for today. And once again, thank you so much, Dr. Surindar Dhesi, for your presentation and also your time for share your knowledge about it. And I'm sure that there are a lot of new knowledge and also benefits that we got from this session, and we hope we can meet again later in the future. Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Dhesi, Surindar Dhesi, and now we're gonna close this session of discussions, and I will give back the event to the Master of Ceremony. Please, Talenta Yemima. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Surindar. Waiting to cooperate with you later.
Yes.
All right, thank you so much, Miss Ira, for returning back to me. And ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the close of today's online session. I am Mima as your Master of Ceremony, and on behalf of the Department of Environmental Health, Faculty of Public Health, would like to extend our deepest appreciation to everyone who made this event possible. Our sincere gratitude goes to Dr. Surindar Dhesi for delivering such an enlightening presentation on qualitative methods in environmental and public health research. And to our moderator, Mrs. Septia Irawati, for guiding today's discussion session. We are also grateful to the Dean of Public Health Faculty, all academic staff, our organizing committee, and every participant who joined us online. We hope today's session has enriched your knowledge and deepen your understanding of how qualitative insight can drive positive change in environmental health. We look forward to welcoming you back to our next Visiting Professor program event and many programs later. Thank you very much for your active participation. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon and have a good day,
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi
everyone.
wabarakatuh.
See you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Makasih Mbak Ira.